Welcome, everyone. Today is August 6th, 2020, and I'm Mike.
And I'm Brian.
And this is what got our attention. So, usually we start this off with what we've been playing for the week, and I can say I actually played quite a few different games this week. Starting with the good old faithful Rocket League. I kind of went back on the wagon on that one, so I've been playing a lot of Rocket League lately because of all the new hype and everything. I kind of been just dug back into that again. I was able to get into since last time, the Fall Guys closed beta, and then we also did Game of the Moment this week for Fall Guys. And I will say, I know you had a lot of fun with it. I had a lot of fun with it. It's we've come up with another thing to rate our game on, which is drinkability, apparently, from playing Fall Guys. And it's a battle royale. It's a different type of battle royale, which most people are used to, like first-person shooters. It's 60 players, and to fight your way to the top. Whether it's all these different type of mini games, very Mario Party-esque is what I feel like.
Yeah, I think calling it a battle royale is a disservice. I don't think it's a battle royale. You don't play a battle royale in phases where you eliminate people. It's similar to battle royale where you're starting with 60 people, and I think that's where the similarity ends. In all reality, it almost seems like a massively multiplayer Wipeout, like the TV show.
It definitely reminds me a lot of MXC.
Minions?
Yeah, like MXC was a big one, and then the other thing that we talked about was Fusion Frenzy. Also, like I said, Mario Party, like the mini games. There's just a lot of similarities to things like that. I will say, as good as a game it is, I think it was about an hour in, I think, is when we started kind of losing our steam, as you could say, with the game. And then mainly just because if you're playing with friends, it's one of those things where, if I win and I move on to the next round, then you're kind of just waiting for me if you've gotten called out. So it's like we're kind of just sitting in that holding pattern.
You didn't like that? I loved it. I loved watching the other people play. I loved watching some of the strategies that people were using on some of the mini games. I loved the fact that we were playing with a couple other people. One guy went by the name of Herschel, and I loved being the commentator as he was playing the game, where it was in some ways like Rocket League, because you were on a soccer field and there was there was two soccer balls, sometimes a football. And he had to get it in the other person's goal, and these little minion-like type guys come along and headbutting it, and I loved watching the other people I was playing with. If all three of us were out, fine, we drop out and we go on to the next game. I'm still up for playing a lot more of it, mostly because there's just no pressure in it when I'm playing it. It's not like the Call of Duties or the Apexes or the Fortnites where you're like, you go. There's a bunch of other people, and you play these different and mini games. We talk about like Wario War and Mario Party, but it's more than that. It's more of like a mini stage, and the stage is like a mountain that you got to climb up, and there's fruit rolling down it, and you got to avoid the fruit, or you're like going through this area that has all these doors, and some of the doors are false doors. So when you smack into them, you don't go anywhere. You smack into them and stop. Yeah. And then other ones, just fly apart like blocks, and those blocks still have physics. You got to get them out of the way, or they'll slow you down, or you jump over them, and you got multiple sets of these doors until you fall off a cliff, and then you run to the finish line, and only 36 of 60 are going to qualify at the end.
Right.
So it's like these mini stages, and they're all around a similar theme. And some of them have multiple mechanics. Some of them are team-based. Some of them you're trying to grab the tail off of the other team or infect the other team. Or it's all free-for-all, and everybody's just trying to grab a tail, and only so many tails to go around.
There was something I had mentioned when we were playing. I said it jokingly, and I know that you guys are kind of laughed it off. But what I said was, I was like, this could be the next big esport, and you guys were like, get out of here. This esport worthy. But it's funny. As soon as I got off that night and I went and looked on Twitter, just for different tags and things, and there was already a tag for Fall Guys, the new esport. So that is literally a thing that people are already saying. So I'm, hey, you heard it here first on the stream. You heard it.
Nope, not happening.
Oh man,
there's no teams. There's no indication of who anyone else is besides yourself, so that you don't have any names to anyone else. So I mean, it's lacking all the things that you need.
Well, you can have your name above the character. You can bring that up during.
That's for yourself, though.
Well, no, you can see other people.
Yeah, I didn't see their names too well, so
I wasn't paying attention to them, but you could see them.
You could see the other people. I couldn't see their names, so I mean, it lacked that sense of identity. But I mean, you talk about an esport, and the other game that I've been playing this week is an esport. It's certainly a sport, and it's certainly played on the internet, free to play, and that's Blaseball.
Oh, I saw you play.
And it's actually.
I didn't look into it.
Blaseball.com. I mean, it's almost like a clicker game, but a little bit different. It's almost like if you're kind of removed from baseball itself and you're just looking at like the things that are happening, like people hitting a ball and stuff like that. And you got all these different teams and all these different like games you can watch. I'm a fan of the LA Tacos. 72 degrees and spicy.
That sounds good.
Yeah, 72 degrees and spicy. The Charlatan shoe stealers beat my team the other day. The other day being earlier. Their motto is your kicks are our kicks. But it's all these fake teams, and if it were just that, it really wouldn't be anything. I mean, you go there and you get X amount of fake dollars automatically that you can spend for betting on teams, and you get extra money if you win.
Nice. Any kind of sport we can get into at any point at this this Rona economy, I think people are just going for it.
Yeah, well, the fun begins from there, because then the great thing is that you look at the book of Blaseball, BLASE ball, and the rules are there, but most of them are redacted. So it's like you don't. It's like if a game were to exceed more than redacted hour, then redacted, and so it's like all this stuff's missing. And the whole concept of this is that it changes based off of the people playing the game, not playing the game of the baseball teams, or Blaseball teams, but actually people playing Blaseball. So you can actually use some of your coins that you win to earn the right to vote on rules.
Wow.
So they had a peanut rule that came up, and all of a sudden there were certain players that were allergic to peanuts, and if they get hit by peanuts, they died.
Damn.
And then there was a whole bunch of crazy stuff that happened. So we entered, I think they called it the disciplinary era. And all of a sudden, like if an umpire didn't like somebody, he could vaporize that player off that team. And that player no longer, like they were gone. They can't play for the team anymore. It's like, because each team has players and it's got like star stats on how good they are, and it's even got a ticker going across. It's like the commissioner is doing a good job, or we love all Blaseball. And it's just the tickers go across, and then it starts talking about people that have good batting averages and these other stat type things. So like in some cases it seems like normal baseball and stats and all this, the stuff that the numbers that some of the fans of baseball love. But then on the other side, it's this weird like thing going on in the background that's almost like Cookie Clicker, when Cookie Clicker started hitting the grandma apocalypse, and they were talking about, like grandmas merging into one, and like if you remember any of that stuff.
Deflossing.
Oh God, you got to play some Cookie Clicker. You're a terrible man. You haven't tried that. No, but it's strange, and I've just touched on the surface of it, and I can see it's strange. And then they give you so many peanuts that you can eat, and it says, peanut, you ate it, it's yummy. And then I'm like, well, what did it do? Why do I want more peanuts? And it's goofy. Definitely goofy game. You don't have to pay for it. It's just an internet game, kind of a clicker. You can leave it running in a browser. Every hour it does a new set of games.
Wow.
So check it out if it sounds interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to check it out myself. I guess we'll go ahead and start getting into the news. It's actually a pretty heavy streaming cloud episode. I mean,
Yes.
let's just talk about the amount of news that came out this week that we had to try to cover, and then constantly having to update it. The
news has been popping this week.
So
every time I turn around, I was like, "Oh, that sounds interesting. Oh, that's cool." And, like, you talk about got my attention.
Yeah, this is the first week I think we
This
had to
week was-
get rid of articles. We were like, this just doesn't cut.
Oh,
This just
absolutely.
doesn't cut it. So this is actually a heavy cloud streaming episode. Like, there's a lot of things related to that, and I guess we'll just jump into it. We have a lot of things to cover, and I guess the first story is yours.
Yeah, Bloomberg is where this story came from, although several other people contributed to it. And basically, it's that we have several of these streaming services that have been game streaming services, not streaming of you playing games like Twitch, but actually where you stream the games to a phone or a tablet or even a lower level computer or laptop, like even like one of the Chrome laptops, where you don't have to have the hardware in the device itself. You just need a good internet connection, and you need to be able to connect a controller to it. So Stadia is one of the ones that we talked about in the past.
Right.
Xbox, Xcloud, which they're going to rename. That's not the actual name of it. And Nvidia also has their gaming streaming service as well. The interesting thing about this is that all of these streaming services have an Android app, so that you can connect on your Android device, tablet, again, Chrome tabs, things like that, so that you can play these games. And that's like somewhere around 2.5 billion devices out there.
Right.
But then you come to Apple with its about 1 billion devices, which is still 1 billion smartphones and tablets. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's a market. When you're talking about, like, Game Cloud might be, $4.99 a month or even, depending on what they end up pricing that with. If it's Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, then it's like $15 a month, or, $15 a month times a billion. If granted, not a billion people are going to do it, but still, let's say even a million, you're talking about a lot of money a month. But the problem is that Apple's they're really strict about things that are on their platform.
Yeah, they've always been that way.
They've always been that way, and they're specific that you can't have something that is streaming from the cloud. Yet they have Apple Arcade, which is $4.99 a month, and you got 100 games to choose from. And it's questionable whether it's the same, because Apple Arcade kind of downloads some of those games to the device and play off the device. So it's not really streaming, at least for most of the games that we're aware of. It's very, very difficult. Now, Steam was able to get around this, because what they did is they did not include the Steam store, so you couldn't have in-app purchases through this.
Okay.
That was one of the restrictions. So Steam was able to do it by removing the Steam store. And then they got a bit of a streaming thing where you could, like, stream from your Steam running on your computer. Another thing that showed up in this Bloomberg article was that Game Club actually managed to get onto the App Store. Now, they do some older games, and what they did is, first they released them all as separate apps on the App Store, so that they were available separately. Then did a $4.99 subscription where you could just get access through all the apps through their application. And still, even with that, it was rejected by Apple 127 times. They said, quote, the amount of effort we put into making sure the app played by Apple's rules was no joke. It was a huge undertaking. Now, this is by Game Club. This is something that Microsoft certainly could take on, and they actually have got the start of it over there. But boy, are there glaring differences, because it's not just whether or not it streams from the cloud. it's also whether or not it's a first-party game or not. So on Android, you have 90 plus games you can stream to your Android device. Apple, 1. Halo. Halo Master Chief Collection. That's it.
Wow.
And it's like, because, for instance, Ark Survival Evolved is by, Studio Wildcard. Nope, can't have it over in the Apple thing because it's not made by Microsoft. Age of Wonders Planetfall. No, that's Paradox Interactive. Can't have it over there. So there's these huge restrictions that Apple's putting up that is blocking all of these different streaming services. Xcloud was just one of the examples I was given there, but Stadia's got some of the same problems. The Nvidia streaming relies on you connecting to Steam, and then it's streaming your Steam games that you have.
Kind of like the Steam Link that they put out too. Like that was one of the intros to this, right?
Yeah, very much like the Steam Link, but in Nvidia's case, what they're doing is they're doing a virtual computer that runs the game for you and then streams it so that you don't even have to have the hardware to begin with. So,
which is probably the smartest way to do all this with all the phones. Like, I mean, you're not going to be able to get, quality type, games ran on your phone without having some sort of, problem.
Right. You have to have the hardware running virtually somewhere. And it's not like, this isn't like it's something that's going to go away.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember over a year ago, looking over from the table where I was eating dinner, actually lunch, sorry, and looking over, and there was a kid playing PUBG on his phone.
Yep.
Or Fortnite.
I've even seen like the little like adapters for the phone. They make a little paper thing so you can like do the triggers just to be able to like hit the screen.
Or even the controller has a device on it that you can put the phone into, a little clamp, and that holds the phone right above the controller. The controller's attached by Bluetooth. This is not going away. Streaming, like, is everybody going to go to streaming? No. Is streaming there for everyone? No, it's for specific audiences that either want to do the gaming on the go, like they're on a train ride every day to work, or people that just don't have the hardware to begin with, but they got this phone, and they want to play games too. Everybody, it's literally a new market in some ways. There's some overlap where there's people that are going to want both. But in some ways, this is an entire new market. When you talk about 3.5 billion devices, that's a huge market. This is not going away. And it's going to be very interesting. And I hate to use this saying that we've used before and that other people have used a lot before, but it's going to be really interesting to find out who is going to end up being the Netflix of streaming games.
It's funny that you bring that up. Actually, like I said, this is a heavy cloud streaming episode, right? So there was actually an article, it's a Bloomberg article, again, I guess they're just on top of it this week. But what was mentioned is that game maker or game company Tencent is in talks to be creating a $10 billion streaming giant. So over the week, basically, the news broke that Tencent's in talks with trying to potentially get a large partnership from Huya, I think it is pronounced Huya Inc., and also Duya International Holdings, two big companies in China that do a lot of the online gaming, streaming gaming, phone type games, and they're trying to buy a stock, which would be basically if they own the stock for both of these, they would basically be one of the top shareholders essentially for the company for big markets of all these different online games. And from what the article is saying essentially is that they with them being able to be a part of this, they're trying to get into that streaming sense of games being on your phone again, because they also have and obviously Tencent's not new to this, right? Like they already, if you don't know who they are, they're kind of like one of those companies that you really don't know about unless you know about them, and once you find out, you're like, wow, I didn't believe that that's really the person who owned all this stuff. And they're one of the big corporations that really own everything. And just a little bit of what they own, just for example, is they have full ownership of Riot Games. So basically your Valorant and League of Legends. They own full ownership of Funcom, which is a Norwegian publisher. They have they basically 80% ownership of Grinding Gear Games, which does your Path of Exile. They have approximately 84% ownership in the developer Supercell, which does your classic Clash of Clans and Clash Royale. And I mean, I'm just keep naming stuff, right? So 40% of ownership of Epic Games, which was the big deal that they made. I think it was recently, last year or maybe the year before, which is obviously the game maker Fortnite, or the owner of Fortnite, and also the platform.
Which by itself is an $18 billion company.
Right. And it just, I mean, the list keeps going. This is on their Wikipedia for them. You can just keep looking up all the stuff. And they've dabbled in a lot of different things. So not only from like PC games and the gaming aspect of that, but also like cell phone games. And it's a big market that they're definitely aware of. They're definitely wanting to be a part of it. And if they can get a part of this deal to go, I mean, yeah, it's $10 billion, but you know what? Like, they're going to make like so much money, so much more money than they already have. And like I said, they're one of the big fish. They love buying ownership of different companies and stocks and everything. So it's going to be insane.
You know, and you mentioned gaming companies that they own, and that is a big thing. And that's ones that we're aware of here in the States.
Right.
But I mean, they have a lot of stake in the Asian market with a lot of mobile games, like you said, on the phone, which are very big over there.
Yep.
Much bigger than consoles. Like the PlayStation sells more in the States and Europe than it does in Asia.
Yeah, I mean, like you said earlier, everybody has a phone, right? Everybody's got something they want to do on their phone. They're always looking at it, so that's how they're marketing.
And they have a really big stake in a lot of the big social media aspects that are out there in companies. And those are that's how they're able to, like, the equivalent of the Discords and the equivalent of the Facebooks and things like that. So that not only do they have the games on the mobile platform, but they have this like controlling stake in the way that the companies that people are talking about these things as well. So it's a nice kind of both sides of the picture that they've got. And they're huge. They've got money in places that like is just amazing. When you read off several that I didn't even know about.
Well, that's the thing is, like, most people kind of heard their name back when they were going to buy Epic or buy a big share of Epic, and like people were like, oh, it's that company. All they do is buy everybody up, and everything goes to shit essentially after that. But it's really, they've done a lot, and they have their hand in everything. And I mean, they're becoming a global giant. Well, not becoming, they are a global giant. So and like I said, they're trying to become, like you said, with overseas, like they have their own, Twitches, and I think it's called We Game, I believe. It's basic, or We Game is basically essentially another Steam. And they actually have a larger fan base than Steam has currently. I wish I'd remember the number. It was like 200 million users versus 100 and something users.
Yeah. And it's because they cater to the phones.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where a lot of this is going. And it's not like the consoles or the PCs are going to go away.
Right.
There's going to be the fan base there, and there's going to be the games that are made for that work on those. That's why these streaming services are going to exist, is because, they need this higher horsepower output to be able to stream to these devices that just can't handle that type of number crunching when it comes to like the 3D and all the effects. They need something like that. And so it looks like they're getting ahead of the game. Looks like they're actually thinking ahead and making the purchase where they need to.
Well, that's the thing is, and it's all about being on the go, right? So yeah, cell phone's in your pocket. I mean, look at Nintendo Switch. Like when that dropped, everybody, I mean, obviously they sold out in Nintendo fashion. They never have enough for everybody. And we'll get into that later. But basically, like, it's one of those devices that, instead of having to pay for a console, I can use the thing that I already have. And then I get to still play those, AAA games or independent games that, these game makers are making without having to do all of that.
For a monthly fee that usually ends up less than the games that if you bought them individually.
And then all of the games, not just $4.99 for one game. You could pay $4.99 just like the Xbox. I mean, all the different passes everybody's doing. Everything has been going this way with this subscription, starting with the Netflix, starting with, all of these different subscriptions, even those box deals you get. You pay $20 for a random box you get in the mail. And I mean, all of these subscription services are getting that worked into that system, because the model is great, right? You pay money for something. Potentially, you may not even know what you're going to get. In this case, with like gaming ones, we do know what we're going to get. We're going to get whatever's in their library. But you pay monthly, and you're going to have retention. You're going to have people paying that monthly subscription every single month. And you add that up by how many millions of users or billions of users are using it, and it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're going to go from like trying to be more inclusive and get the games out to more people to actually taking the stuff and denying it to groups, which is exactly what happened with the upcoming Marvel's Avengers, which I believe is releasing in September. And it's basically a RPG game in the Marvel's universe with the Avengers. You're starting out with a select group of characters, including like Iron Man and Hulk and Thor. Later on, we're supposed to get Hawkeye. And we got great news. Spider-Man's going to be coming to it.
What?
But only to the PS4 and PS5.
Because that makes sense.
It will be exclusive only to that console, not to the Xbox, and I'm pretty sure it's coming out on PC, but it's not going to the PC either. Now, okay, so yeah, these exclusivity deals happen. Certainly, you even got back to the days of, I believe, Sword Calibur, which
Soul Calibur?
You had Soul Calibur, which you had like Yoda on one and another character on another console, and you had exclusive characters per console. That makes sense. And really, the studio putting this out could have just like continued on. Crystal Dynamics could have just like said, "Oh, that's business," and continued on. But actually, Scott Amos, who is the co-head of that studio, had an interview with Comic Book and kind of made matters more confusing. Now, this is from the Kotaku article, and and they're quoting the Comic Book interview that he did.
And please read it.
I'm going to do this
verbatim. I want you to read
word for word.
Good luck.
Word for word. So the beauty of Spider-Man and what Spider-Man represents as a character and as a world is, again, it comes back to the relationship with PlayStation and Marvel. We happen to be, once you can execute and deliver, when it comes down to choices of where and what Spider-Man can be, it's a relationship question that PlayStation absolutely has the rights to. That, as you guys know, with Sony's ownership here, and Marvel with Sony saying, hey, this is something we can do. This is something we can do on the platform. Now, at this point in time during the interview, I'm surprised they didn't stop this guy and ask him to smile to make sure he wasn't having a stroke. Because
what?
There was no sense there. But wait, it goes on. And so, what do we as creators say? This is an opportunity that we can make something unique and fun and awesome that you just talked about Black Widow, and to be able to have that experience so that we love the idea of being able to bring this character to PlayStation players. Okay, coming out of the stroke status a little bit there, I think, but ending up with, but I really do think people will look at this and say, yeah, okay, we get that. We understand the business behind that. But in general, we're making this game for everybody.
What? Making the game for everyone.
I mean,
everyone on PlayStation 4 or 5.
Are you kidding me? Like, no one is going to look at that or listen to what this guy said and have any understanding of the business there. Now, he could have simply said that because Sony owns the movie rights to Spider-Man, that in some way those rights carried over to this. Maybe. I don't think they do, but I mean, I haven't seen the contracts. I don't know. He could have just said that, hey, Sony paid for this exclusivity deal. Boom. And like both of those would have been like, yeah, we've heard of this before. We understand that business model.
Right.
The whole like crazy half sentence changing subject and just randomness that this guy said is definitely not helping things.
Kind of reminds me of someone else I know. So
yeah, sometimes me.
Nah, someone a little more famous.
But yeah, this looks like that it's coming out as an interesting RPG. Do not think that this has anything to do with the movies. It is about the comic book characters, and because of that, they're not going to look like the actors. You should get that out of your mind first. And if you can get past that point, it looks like it might have some interesting things as maybe an action type RPG of the Avengers. Again, coming out next month. We'll see. I've heard mixed reviews, both positive and negative, about this, so I'm looking forward to like giving it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, another kind of crazy thing, I guess, that happened with the streaming world is something that we just talked about with the whole partnerships and things. Well, guess what? So Microsoft and Samsung have actually announced a special partnership for Xbox Game Pass on Android. This is a Verge article that I'm reading here. But what's happening is, so Samsung is allowing the new Galaxy Note 20 to be included in the Xbox Game Pass partnership. So, but what they're saying is basically if you buy one of the new phones, it'll come with like some sort of deal with Microsoft Xbox Game Pass that you can then play on your phone, play on the tablet or on your Note, I guess you could say. And the weird part about it though is in order to do this, you can only do it through the Samsung store as opposed to Google Play Store. So Google obviously was trying to, convince them to let them also do it, but they've decided to go with Samsung only. And so you can look for the Xbox Game Pass there, but you're not going to get it on that one. And but it's like they have a controller that's already made to basically hold the Note 10 or the Note 20, I guess we just said. Note 20, yeah. Like Note 10 was like years ago. And so they already have a controller meant for it. And
Note 10.
Yeah, they already have a controller made for it, and it's obviously going to come with that like as a bundle deal you can get for the phone and the pass and the controller. So, and it charges your phone and everything while you're playing. So that was kind of interesting because we have, like we just said, all these different people who are trying to make moves into the streaming, this new like takeoff streaming thing that everybody's starting to see numbers for, and an Xbox Game Pass and all the moves that they're doing right now and that pass is great, especially with Ultimate, because you can play from PC to Xbox to whatever. So
yeah, it's weird because it almost sounds like they're segregating even further down. Even smaller than Apple in some ways, but at the other side of it is we're talking about Xbox Game Pass here, which has some limitations in it, not necessarily the Xcloud feature, which is going to be on all Android devices that can support at least Xcloud streaming. So I don't know. I'll be interested to see what this actually ends up meaning. It could be just a blip in the radar that means nothing.
Yeah,
I don't be that.
I don't know. I don't see it being too popular because it's tied to at least one phone for now, right? So unless you're going to be a fan of a Note, which I'm not because it's just too big. I'm not a fan of large phones like that. Like I like smaller phones, especially something that can fit in my pocket. But that's how everybody. There's different types of phones, right? That's why everybody has their own opinion on what they like, and having a stylus is a big deal for some people. And so that's great, but we'll see. They're going to have to do more than just the Samsung, like the Note 20, to make that really a thing. To me, anyway.
Sure, yeah. So, kind of going back to confusing messages. Maybe not quite as confusing as the Spider-Man one, but going to Star Citizen, and some of our listeners, because not every one of our listeners is necessarily gamers, so they may not instantly have a mental image that the rest of us have when we say Star Citizen. But Star Citizen was something that, basically the developer or the people who started it wanted it to be a spiritual successor of this game where you got into a spaceship and you flew around and you did things. And what you did was up to you. You could mine, you could trade, you could hunt down pirates, you could become a pirate. And so around 2011, it started production. And it became famous because it became a Kickstarter in 2012. And in very, very little time, raised $2 million from backers on Kickstarter. Which, for those of you that actually know about the budgets of making games, that's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
Like making
for
a
game
big
this type.
game. Well, yeah, making any large game, any AAA title game is going to be very much like making a movie or even more. You literally are in the hundreds of millions of dollars to make these large games.
Yeah, and that's not even including like the server costs, because you're talking about an online game, something that's going to be massive where everybody can play. So it's just like a World of Warcraft. All the servers that are required and the maintenance required to publish those. Right.
Well, at least for one side of it. So originally that was anticipated to launch in 2014. It still hasn't launched yet. It's on Alpha 3 dot something.
Progress.
They started releasing modules. Like they released a module where you could, like hangar module, where you could walk around the spaceship that you purchased with real money. Because you could purchase the game outright. Or you could purchase like a big ship for more money.
Yeah, and there's like a subscription too. Like you kind of can play, you pay to play.
The insurance. Yeah. The insurance is the subscription, because if your ship blows up, you need insurance. And the insurance, when you first get it, you only get like 3 months of insurance.
Yeah, this is starting.
You better
to sound
have
too real
in-game
to me.
money to. Yeah, you better have in-game money to pay for that new ship, or you better have insurance on it, or in-game money to pay for the insurance, or real-world money to play for the. So there was all these things. So they released these modules, and the modules, as the years progressed, gave them like a little bit more stuff. To date, June 2020, they've raised over $300 million just in cloud, just in sourcing out to regular people, cloud funding. Another $63.5 million in external investments. So this is like, venture capitalists coming in and giving them money for this. And it's not like it's been doing nothing. The modules have increased to the point where they now have an arena where you can dogfight with some other people, but they haven't really progressed very much about making a cohesive game. They now have the persistent universe, which includes some of that module, and there's like 7 or 8 planets that you can go to and some moons. By the way, in this intervening time, No Man's Sky has announced, launched, and had some 100 million planets that are procedurally generated, just like
and that was one of the games that was really dogged on when it first got released, and actually one of those companies who turned it around and actually are still releasing content, even though they're way surpassed the price of the game at this point.
Yeah. Well, somewhere in the middle of all of this, they said, oh, well, we want a single-player campaign, too, because that's the Star Citizen thing. They're like, every now and then, they're like, oh, we want to add this, and we want to add this. And then they break it. They're like, well, we're doing everything in modules anyway, so this should be real easy to do. And then they get bogged down in all this stuff, and stuff doesn't release. So they came out with this concept of Squadron 42, which was going to be this single-player way to play Star Citizen, including your ships and possibly getting out and at designated landing zones on planets and being able to walk around. And you were going to be part of the Earth Empire force that goes out there and kicks butt in the solar system. And so where it becomes interesting is that this gets spun off to a different studio. The brother of the guy who actually does Star Citizen. And apparently this was supposed to be due out in 2016. Well, it's 2020. It's still not out. And they kept doing these roadmaps back in the past. Well, then in March of this year, they released this, they like, oh, we're going to get rid of the old roadmap because it doesn't tell you very much. And we're going to bring in this new roadmap. The new roadmap was like once a week, and they were talking about what they were working on. And I was looking at it, and it was like, May 8th, we're working on better physics and handling of the weapons so that it looks more realistic. And I'm like, you're 4 years into this and you're still working on the animations on how you're handling weapons? This is not... And other people started thinking these same things. So Kotaku has got this great article out there that basically 8 years in development and the fans are still pretty upset. And I was reading through this thing, and they're upset about the same things that, we've kind of been talking about, that Star Citizen sees this new shiny thing and they work on it, and like other resources get pulled away from the other stuff, and then stuff stagnates and stuff doesn't move forward. And it's just this reoccurring story. But when it got really awesome was because the fans started complaining about the lack of progress on Squadron 42, the single player version of this, that they released a statement. The sub company did, which is not, sorry. Anyway, they released a statement about their roadmap. And the statement they're saying, we're not ready to share stuff, but the statement ends up with, while it's not quite ready, it's currently top priority on the web team's current projects. Now, this is warning sign number 1. The web team's current project. He right there should clue you into the fact he's not talking about the game.
I would say clue number
He's
one
talking
is
about
really the cloud funding, like Kickstarter, that the game hasn't been released or even finished or even somewhat shape or form.
Well, yeah.
Like, that's your first sign.
But
I mean, come on, you already paid for it.
But that's the old story. That's the old story.
Oh, right.
The new story is like they're addressing fans' concerns now about the game not moving forward. And they say, current top priority for the web team's current project. Web team? The web team are the people that make the website, not the game. In the immediate future, we plan to deliver the following communications. 1, give an explanation of the goals of our new roadmap and what to expect from it. Not what the roadmap is. Not the goals of what we're going to do to fix the game. The goals of the roadmap. Are you kidding me? This is like having an announcement that you're going to have an announcement.
Yeah, basically.
They're literally saying, we're going to tell you what the goals of our roadmap are. 2, show a rough mock-up of the proposed new roadmap. Further saying that they're only talking about the roadmap here and not fixing the game or finishing the game. 3, share a work-in-progress version of the roadmap for at least one of our core teams. Okay, now they've just said, we're going to give you early access to our roadmap. Like, are you kidding me?
That's what I paid for.
And then finally 4, and then finally transition to this new roadmap. So literally, the fans are upset about Squadron 42 not moving forward after the combined companies, bringing in $365 million, which again, I don't want to hype on that too much because that is what it takes to make a game of this scale.
Right.
You have to pay for offices and salaries and we're talking 7 years of development and people and hiring more developers. It is expensive. Games are expensive like that. That's not an unrealistic number, but to have gotten that kind of money and you're like, hey, we're going to give you early access to look at our roadmap.
That's insane.
What?
I mean, they're not the only company out there
crazy.
that does this. I mean, look, I played DayZ for I think it was almost 1,000 hours at some point. And it was a game that I was really into. But I played it all the way from, alpha 0.38 all the way up to, I think, 0.60. And it took years. Like, this was like 3 or 4 years of playing the game. And it wasn't even until after that, almost another year before they finally went to a beta state. And then, but it was like we kept complaining about the same things. Like, what about this? What about the stuff you said you were going to do a long time ago? And, you know, the game maker would say, hey, we now have a new animation for zombies. And it's like, okay, well, that has nothing to do with what we've been asking. How about you fix the glitching? How about you fix the building structures? Like, how about I don't die when all I do is climb a staircase and I just die? And this is a survival game where if you die, you lose everything. So it's like, how about fix the right things, not the other things? I don't know. It's just, I think it's one of those things where companies now, with the whole structure of not having, you know, a set core, like I have to release this game and then hopefully make money off of it. It's now I can get money up front and then we can see what we want to do. And then, you know, once we have the money, then we can kind of just, you know, do what we want and we'll put it out eventually. And sometimes never. Like, I just think that, you know, I mean, it's great at the same time because you get to try out early access games, you get to help the developers, like, build games and, you know, get your voice. But at the same time, on the other side, you're literally just having to wait for something that's not finished.
Yeah, and that's fine. But, I mean, even in that case, you're playing something that is essentially a somewhat complete game. Bug-ridden, but a somewhat complete game. Not something where you have chunks that you can do this here and chunks that you do this here, and some of them don't connect and some of them do connect. And then the developer, instead of addressing your concerns, going like, yeah, well, we did fix this over here. Instead, they say, no, we're going to give you early access to look at our roadmap.
Yeah, that's still
I mean, that's a whole new level.
It's still wild. I know people are getting away with this kind of stuff. Oh, man.
I don't know.
So
speaking of whole new level.
Yeah, speaking of whole new level and speaking of people getting away with stuff. So the net actually just came out a couple hours ago, but Dr. Disrespect has been in a topic now for a few weeks, about a month or so, I guess, in the streaming world. If you don't know who he is, he's one of the most like pseudo-type Twitch streamers ever. Like, he's got a whole persona that he carries on. His name is literally Dr. Disrespect, and he just carries on. He's a
shock jock.
Yeah, I mean, he just is outrageous on his streams, and he plays a lot of first-person shooters and things. And I mean, he's definitely got the persona. I mean, that's what he's got, you know. And people really loved that. Like, he had millions of followers and stuff. And it was announced a couple months ago, or about a month and a half ago now, that he was banned on Twitch. And to this day, we still do not know what exactly happened. He's kind of talked about lightly, like, you know, he hasn't said anything about why he was banned. He doesn't know, apparently, why he was banned. Twitch hasn't made an announcement of why he's banned. He's just banned. And, you know, we talked lightly about this before, like exclusivity.
Finally.
Yeah, with Twitch. And, you know, if you get banned on Twitch, you're basically, if that's your only brand, like, you're just dead in the water. You can't ask Twitch to give you anything. They're not going to give you anything back. Like, it's just over. So luckily for him, he was already a larger, you know, giant in the streaming world. So, you know, if he moved his platform, it'd be fine. But that was the question of, until today, where he was going. What was he going to do? And obviously Mixer's gone. So we have Twitch and we have YouTube and Facebook Gaming. And what he announced today is that he's going to have a new stream starting tomorrow at 3 p.m. I think it's Eastern. And he's going to be streaming on YouTube. The thing that they did mention, though, was that he did not sign a contract, at least from what they're reporting. Mm-hmm. They didn't sign a contract like he did with Twitch. So he's actually got he doesn't have a contract with YouTube. He's going to be promoting himself on YouTube, streaming from YouTube for now, but also looking at avenues of his own website, potentially, and then also maybe doing Facebook Gaming as well to see, you know, which one fans out. And that's really the way, I mean, all streamers should really go, is really looking at trying to play the field and really see who's going to give you the most bang for the buck. It's just unfortunate for his part. He had
get access to the different audiences.
Yeah. So
yeah, have access to different audiences, things like that. I mean, I don't know. The guy's controversial. That's for sure. He's a shock jock. There are and people like that. A lot of people like that. He does some things that I find extremely distasteful, but you know what? It's a persona. Does he take things too far sometimes? Yes. That's probably why he got banned.
That's probably why he got famous. People love that stuff.
Yeah. Is he a terrible guy personally? You know, from what I've heard from people that met him, no, he's not a terrible guy personally. It's a persona. And the thing with persona and shock jock and stuff like that is you have to be on the edge. And I don't necessarily agree with it being a good thing, but I can understand why they do it at least, even if I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
But anyway, it'll be interesting to see because I think YouTube is probably right now getting close to Facebook. Jumped for some crazy reason, and I roll my eyes every time you talk about like moving to Facebook. They did jump up quite a bit within the last 8 months, but I think YouTube's going to end up being the second largest behind Twitch, just because it's got the YouTube base to begin with.
Yeah, and also not having to share personal information like your account for Facebook being tied to your streaming, and which is a lot of people has turned a lot of streamers off from what I've been watching on different Twitch streams. So it's
absolutely.
It is interesting. Basically had to bring it up because it is big news, and we'll see how fast he gets banned from YouTube, I guess.
Still got my attention.
Yeah. I think you got the last one here.
Oh, I do. I don't know why I thought it was time for ads.
Nah, not yet.
Sorry. So Blizzard Entertainment staff has been just having revolts over pay. This is we talk a lot about games, but we also try to talk about the industry. We try to talk about real world things that happen around the games as well.
Right.
And this is one of them. This is one of them where, Blizzard Entertainment was purchased by the parent company Activision long time ago. It's now Activision Blizzard. And they went into this time where they needed to cut costs. And there was hundreds of jobs cut. And some of this was within the last year or so. And of course, new responsibilities being put onto other people. You have the same amount of work you got to do in many cases, but you got less people to do it. So more people have got to do more work.
Right.
And there was no pay increases. So this has been going on for a number of years. And even as the company itself is posting record profits.
Oh, yeah.
So they're cutting costs, but they're making record profits. So essentially the staff there just kind of revolted, and they started circulating this Excel document where people anonymously put on what their salary was.
Wow.
And they put this around, and this is even after there were some programs that Blizzard did to try to address some of these things before this happened. And Bloomberg actually reported that, yeah, sure, Blizzard did that. And on average, people got like less than 10% pay increase, significantly less than what people expected. And that's kind of what led up to this on top of everything else. And of course, someone added CEO Bobby Kotick's salary and compensation package to the anonymous spreadsheet to show the difference between the different salaries, because his compensation last year topped $30 million.
That's not too bad.
Yeah.
Oh,
and, an Activision Blizzard spokesman told Bloomberg, because this is a Bloomberg story, our goal has always been to ensure that we compensate our employees fairly and competitively. We're constantly reviewing compensation philosophies to better recognize the talent to our highest performers and keep us competitive in the industry, all with the aim of rewarding and investing in our top employees. That's great, but apparently that's not working too well. Right. Otherwise, this spreadsheet wouldn't exist. There's even one person that said, hey, I've been with the company for a long time, and I essentially make less now than what I made 10 years ago. And people are like, well, I mean, didn't you get raises? Well, yeah, this person probably got raises, but if they doubled their hours, then what they're getting paid per hour ends up being less. And so this is definitely a big thing. This is a story that I expect this just came out literally, it was 9:01 a.m. today, the 6th. And this is something that I expect we're going to see developments over the next month or so. Blizzard might keep it quiet for a little bit, but I don't think the employees are gonna allow it to stay quiet.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely follow it. We'll see what happens with it. Well, with that being said, that will lead us into our time to take an ad. So just take a few minutes here to listen to a word from our sponsors. And that was quick. At least I feel anyway. So we're going to start getting into our short stories, or short news articles, as we say. And I'm going to start it off with a couple ones that kind of just, it's a no-brainer. Obviously, we're in a pandemic, and obviously people people need to stay home and are staying home and wanting to figure out something to spend their time doing. And it's reported
Hindsight
that
2020, obviously.
Yeah, literally. And what was said is basically Nintendo has a new shortage of Nintendo Switches again. And not to anybody's surprise, because obviously when they first launched, they also ran out, and they were still kind of, I mean, I think a few months ago, I remember when I went to the stores before this all kind of broke out, I think I remember seeing Switches everywhere at this point. Like, you could go and see one, and it was like, okay, cool. I'm not going to buy it, but I could definitely find it. And it was getting to that point where they finally caught up. Well, right when the pandemic hit, you had the release of Animal Crossing, which was, a super popular game, still is. And then the pandemic.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. So then everybody went out and started buying these Switches because they wanted to have something that's handheld that they can play on the go or just sitting at the house. And now Nintendo is saying that their Switches remain sold out everywhere, and there's no end in sight. They don't even have a date yet of when they're gonna be able to resolve these shortages. And so if you're looking for a Nintendo Switch right now, obviously the only way you're gonna get it is by a reseller,
Good
and
luck.
that's not gonna be a nice price tag for that. But
Yeah, don't bother.
But oddly enough, not really, they also reported, this is Nintendo, reported a wild 428% surge in profits thanks to the lockdown. This is a CNBC article I'm getting the actual numbers from. But yeah, so imagine that. So not only did they sell out, they also increased their profits over 400%. So that...
Who would have thought that you should have purchased Nintendo stock at the beginning of the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, really. I mean, who would have known any of these things? Like Amazon. I mean, I can't even tell you how many boxes of packages. I mean, I think I've ordered like 98 packages since like the beginning of this or whatever. And
yeah, because Amazon's had a profit through all this, even though that they slowed down deliveries and everything for a long time.
Yeah, and even with that, it was never too bad. Like, I still got stuff pretty quickly. And I rely on that a lot because I definitely don't go out. I definitely stay home, and I order everything I can possibly order from Amazon. I order it, even like household supplies. Like, I know they have the grocery and everything, and I've been doing that too. The other part of the Nintendo Switch thing, this was just something that just kind of slid in there, and I just had to say it. But apparently they have Crysis on Nintendo Switch, and it plays, and that's apparently not a big story. The fact that Crysis is running on a Nintendo Switch, and like, nobody's talking about it is crazy. But obviously, it's a Nintendo Switch. It's not going to be the graphics that were, top ultra and everything that most people are playing on PC. So I get that, but it's still Crysis, and it's still running on a Switch. So
I wish I could say we're done with Switch news, but we're not. Fortunately, this is more than just a Switch. So a new game came out recently, Fight Club. Oh, wait, hold on. No, not Fight Club. Fight Crab.
Fight Crab.
Yes, you heard that right. Crab. This new game came out, which is, a 3D game where you're basically the camera behind the crab that you are controlling. It has been released on Steam and on Nintendo Switch. I do believe I saw it on Steam for about $20.
It's not bad.
Seems quite reasonable. And it seems like a whole bunch of dumb fun. I've been watching some people play this, and you control a crab, and I don't have the Steam page up, but let me see if I can do this by memory. They have single player mode.
Okay.
They have online mode. They have co-op split screen mode. They have co-op online mode.
They have co-op crab mode?
And I think there's one or two that I'm missing. And so you play a crab, you fight when you're playing against another player, you are fighting another crab. If you're playing single player, you're fighting other things, including like dim sum baskets and bottles of alcohol as you go across a table. Sometimes you're a large crab where you're bigger than cars. I've seen a crab grab a tank and use it as a weapon on another crab. The weapons are insane. I've seen chainsaws. I've seen clubs and maces. I've seen, just glowy swords, including laser swords. I've seen them use a Saturn V rocket that not only did they beat the other crab with it like a club, but they could actually use the boosters to shoot across the stage at the other one. I've seen drills. I mean, this thing looks like absolute insanity.
Sounds like sheer madness.
And that's not even counting the control scheme, which will drive you to sheer madness because, you have the two analog sticks, which are controlling the two different arms of the crab. And you have to use the bumpers to grab with the claws, and you use the triggers to do something else with the claws, I think, to activate the device or stab at them. And then the movement of your crab is on the D-pad. So you need 3 thumbs just to play this game.
Oh my goodness. This is sounding ridiculous.
Sounds so ridiculous, so crazy, so over the top. Glowy purple stages all over the place, and the graphics look okay sometimes and bad the other times and great other times, and it's just, I saw a crab that had a fish in one hand that it was trying to beat one crab with, and the other crab had a chainsaw and cut the fish in half. So, I don't know if this is going to end up making it to game of the moment or not, but it certainly looks like some dumb fun. And I know I talked a lot longer than I normally would for a short, but I'm going to give it back to you, Mike.
All right. So speaking of other influencers we're on Twitch, went to Mixer, and then now Mixer's gone. Another big one that was in that reign is obviously Ninja. I mean, people are wondering what Ninja are doing. If you don't know who Ninja is, which, I mean, if you're probably not a Fortnite player, you probably don't know. But he's basically one of the most popular. He, I think, is labeled one of the most popular streamers in the world, essentially. And after Mixer shut down, it was kind of like, where are they going to go? And like we said, Dr. Disrespect is now saying he's going to YouTube. Well, Ninja has said that he's going to check out Hollywood. So there's actually a quote said, movies, voice acting, cartoons, I'm looking for everything. I'm looking at everything. And I mean, obviously this kid he's making lots of money. His name's Tyler Belvins, and he goes by Ninja.
Yeah, he doesn't hurt for money.
Yeah, I mean, he's making, just outrageous money for just streaming a video game and playing video games and having the personality. And he's gonna check out Hollywood. I mean, obviously, I think he'll already have a fan. I mean, if you think about someone getting into movies, being an actor, I mean, you're already bringing in millions of people following this person. And you could put them pretty much in anything. And let's say he is a good actor. Maybe he will actually turn out as an actor and do really well. So that's just
I don't know. I just don't know if Twitch followers and views are going to translate so well to, being in a movie or a TV show. But, I mean, we'll see. We've seen crazier things. Yeah. And again, and when we say this guy isn't hurting for money, he literally is a millionaire. He's made his money. He's one of the biggest earners in the streaming industry. There are some bigger earners on the YouTube side of it, but they're not necessarily streaming all the time. They're more of created content video as opposed to live streaming. Yeah.
I mean, his contract with Mixer was up to $30 million. That was the contract with Mixer, is what was reported.
Yeah, the buyout.
Yeah,
the buyout.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's a multimillionaire. So, I mean, maybe he's just looking for something new and interesting to do.
Yeah, I mean, he's already kind of doing acting on streaming. So, I mean, obviously a different type of role, doing actual acting in front of cameras rolling and actual actors and things. But, I mean, hey, why not? You got $30 million in the bank just from that. Well, you could probably take a vacation a little bit and check out some other things.
Yeah. Well, bringing it back to the games, because darn it, that's what we like to talk about is the games. And I don't have a lot to say about this one because there isn't a lot to say about this right now. Don't get me wrong, though. This is one of my most anticipated games of this year. and that's Baldur's Gate 3, which is being made by Larian Studios. Larian Studios, who brought us a couple prior RPG games that they thought of those games, Divinity Original Sin, Divinity Original Sin 2. They thought of those games as their resume to Wizards of the Coast to show them that they knew how to build these games so that they could build a D&D game. And they got Wizards of the Coast. They said, yeah, man, you guys did it. So they gave them the license to do Baldur's Gate 3. And the stuff they've shown has just looked amazing. Now, because COVID hit, and they said, hey, we got to work at home just like a lot of people do that are out there. We're not essential workers. So we're working from home what we can. But, that hurts some of the collaborative work that's done in creating a game.
Yeah.
So they were they were targeting August for their release. Now, this is not a release of the game. It's very much like Divinity Original Sin, where they do an early access release. So that they can gather a whole bunch of information from a lot of people playing it to fine-tune stuff. And usually they only do like the first chapter or, this very defined chunk of the game.
Well, it's like
so
we
that
said
they
before,
can
we got the news article they sent out as like an update. And they were definitely excited about the early access coming, and they gave us a little bit at if you were to go back and listen to the other podcasts that we had, but we covered a little bit of like the different mechanics they were looking at and what was going to be added, but
and that they were excited about and they told us we're trying for August. We don't know if we're going to make August, and sure enough, they did. Yeah. They just released an actual tweet and said good news and bad news. BG3 won't hit in August, but it's just around the corner. So it sounds like they actually are targeting, September now. We'll be announcing the release date as well as big news on the panel from hell. That's what they're calling their panel from hell coming up, their announcement. Alongside Jeff Keighley, of course, because Jeff Keighley he's been out there and he's been marketing his brand. He's been working with all the companies, trying to make sure that they're not announcing at the same time and they don't step on each other. Jeff Keighley of the Video Game Awards, among other things. He's always at E3. He's a big player in the journalistic and otherwise communities out there. But it says, and the Larian crew, tune in August 18th. So August 18th is going to be Panel from Hell with the Larian crew and Jeff Keighley talking about what we can expect for Baldur's Gate 3, including an actual release date now. Again, kind of that early access release date, limited gameplay, but still, hey, gonna get our hands on it.
Get to try it out.
I'm excited.
In other news, we've got, if you're a big fan of Stardew Valley, Concerned Ape, who's the creator, the actual person who made the game that eventually went to Chucklefish with. And if you ever, and I mentioned this before, actually, this will be a good time for me to explain myself and fix what I said in the past. It's called Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. It's a actual audiobook, and it's not a podcast, as I had mentioned before. So sorry about that, but it is a great audiobook to listen to. And his story is actually covering of Stardew Valley, the story of him, how he created it, and working from home. And it's a great story. You should listen to it. But obviously, he released it digitally online because that's what he had the platform to do. So he actually released the other day as a tweet, said, "I'm really pleased to announce a physical version of Stardew Valley for Switch and PC. This is in collaboration with Fangamer, and there is both standard edition and a collector's edition with bonus goodies. And you can pre-order this now." And being a huge Stardew Valley fan actually got me into actual gardening, which is I never thought I would ever say that, but it's actually a pretty neat little box. It comes with an actual box. The art has really nice art just for on the actual the container itself. But inside included is there's a deed, a land deed that you can have, so you can have that. Comes with the game again, so you'll get another physical copy of the game. You'll come with a poster. It has a little landscape that you can set up. There's little pieces you put together. There's cut out wood and it's painted, or stickers or something, and a couple other things that are inside it in that as well. But it's at a fair price. It's basically the lowest cost is $64. The most expensive is $69, and it comes with the game. So if you have somebody who may be into it, it's a really great just chill type game, and you're just gardening, and basically there's like a story with the town you can do if you want. It's a good present you could probably buy somebody, or if you're just a fan like me, they just want to be able to have a little bit of collector items on your desk or whatever. It's a good choice. And like I said, the price point's pretty good for, especially for all the stuff you're getting plus a game. So I figured I'd bring that up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've seen some of the results of your real world physical gardening. I've seen how you like systems being put together, and just engineering things out, and conveyor belts and building stuff. And I've seen the dark hole of Satisfactory that you've fallen into. So I have concerns. We're having an intervention here.
Good.
You are not allowed to install this mod that is coming out for Satisfactory that basically turns Satisfactory into Stardew Valley in some ways, at least for the gardening ways. So yeah, there's this new mod that's coming out. I almost hate to tell you about this.
Yeah, I don't even know if I want to hear this.
It looks amazing. Like, you take limestone, and from there you're able to extract seeds from it, and you can have different seeds for different things, and you can pipe those seeds into different types of greenhouses of different sizes. Like geodesic dome greenhouses, massive automated greenhouses, and
man.
it like has trees growing into it.
And where's this available? I'm gonna go ahead and start looking.
So it is a community mod, so it's easily found out there. From the seeds, of course, you get fruit and grain and stuff like that. So, of course, they didn't stop there. You can make pies and cakes and muffins. Like, literally, you dump all these different ingredients into these devices that cook and combine them, and out come the actual food items. Like, I saw the video that was going on 20-30 minutes just talking about the different features, and it was mind-blowing the amount of work that has been put into this mod. And it all works with the equipment that you're used to using in Satisfactory, with the constructors and conveyor belts and conveyor belt splitters and everything else like that, and mergers. If you install this, I might have to do the news by myself a week or two.
Well, I hope not. So we actually have a freelance, I would say, reporter or someone. He goes by the name of...
Which is why I could do the news by myself, because I have him.
Yeah, exactly. Him or her, whoever it is, but it goes by the name of Tickle as is the name. And they sent some articles over to us, and the first one is actually pretty interesting. It was something that, once I read it, I kind of got my eye. And it goes for anybody who's played Breath of the Wild. It's pretty interesting on that. Basically, what was found out, there's a Verge article that covers this, but an author decided to write a novel, and it was based on, like, a traditional time back, like, when, what was it made? What was it supposed to be? It was supposed to be, like... man, I can't even think of it now. It's supposed to be like an older time, like previous, like long time ago type of thing. And
13th, 14th century, I think.
And what was happening is that he was looking to try to find a recipe of something that potentially could have been from that time. And what do most people do when you're looking for something? You Google it. And so it seems that the guy actually did that. He Googled this, but what he didn't do is really pay attention to what he was like copying as far as what the recipe was actually for. And I'm going to read a couple lines here from the actual book that's published. This is a published book. And it says, "The dyes I used in my dressmaking were composed from various ingredients, depending on the color required, but almost all required," and this is all good so far, right? "Nightshade," okay. "Sapphire," okay. "Kessie wings," "the leaves of silent princess plants," "Octorok eyeball," "Swift violet," "thistle," and "hightail lizard." In addition, for the red I had used in Abril's dress, I employed spicy pepper, the tail of the red Lizolfos, and 4 Hylian shrooms. So this was like, once
Hightail.
Somebody like read this and was like, wait a minute, what is going on here? Like, obviously this is a joke, right? So they actually, they sent out a tweet to the author here, is John Boyan, and he replied back as a tweet. He said, yeah, I'll leave it as it is. I actually think it's quite funny, and you're totally right. I don't remember, but I must have been just Googled it. Hey, sometimes you got to throw your hands up and say, yep, my bad. And he has like a crying emoji face.
So what you failed to mention there was that these recipes are directly out of Breath of the Wild, the Nintendo Zelda.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That I mean, and for those that have played the game, could actually recognize some of those ingredients. And this guy just didn't realize it. And this got published in a physical book.
It's fantastic.
Made past editors and everybody. Obviously, they weren't Nintendo fans.
Not everybody has to be.
Well, next I have some information from Sony, because we've got new consoles coming out this year, which a lot of people are anticipating and familiar with. And we've seen kind of different philosophies from the different manufacturers. And one of the things that a lot of people have been interested in is on the PlayStation 5, whether your PlayStation 4 controllers will work on it. And The Verge, among many other outlets, basically republished, as it were, a Sony release saying that, hey, Sony's confirming today that the existing PS4 controllers will work on the PS5, but only for PS4 games. If you want to play a PS5 game, they say, Sony, quote, "We believe that PS5 games should take advantage of the new capabilities and features that we're bringing to the platform, including the features of DualSense wireless controller," which they've talked about some of the features. They've got like haptic feedback in the controller and in the triggers. I know Xbox has had some vibration, maybe not to this level, in their triggers all the way through the Xbox One. But in theory, they're bringing out these new features, and they're basically saying, wait, nope. If you can't use the new controller, we're not going to let you play the new game with it.
Wow.
So it's a very interesting thing. They did say that, yes, the PS4 controllers will work with supported PS4 games, and other peripherals will continue to work as appropriate. Some licensed racing wheels, arcade sticks, flight sticks will work with PS5 games and supported PS4 games. The existing PS Move motion controllers and PlayStation VR aim controller will also work with supported PSVR games on the PS5. So they're just really limiting it to, now you probably should buy the new one. And I don't know if anybody remembers when, this happened before, and they had, the 6-axis controller. And it was like, oh, you could just move the controller in motion sense, and you can move it back and forth and side to side, and games are all going to take advantage of these new things. And it was so revolutionary at the time that they couldn't have rumble in the controller. They took the rumble out entirely. Yeah. They said it just won't work with it. Now, a year later, they released the DualShock 4 that was able to do 6-axis and rumble. They didn't mention the fact that they had some licensing concerns about how they did the rumble during that time. But, I mean, nothing really ever came from 6-axis. Everybody who played the games with 6-axis on it were like, yeah, we just don't need these features in this game. So I'm really curious what's so fantastically crazy about the DualSense here that they're saying, nope, we're not going to allow you to use the old controllers on this game. That's completely unplayable if you use the old controller. Whereas Xbox is like, hey, we want you to play games, and we want you to play it in our infrastructure, the Xbox infrastructure. If you want to play it on an Xbox One, sure, we'll just give you reduced graphics. You want to play it on a Series X, we'll give you better graphics. Hey, we have a new controller too. It's got a couple new features on it, but if you want to use your old controller, go ahead. I mean, it's like this completely different, philosophy in approaching it. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I get the PS5 side. Like, if you seriously have features in this thing that these games depend on, and I will say that they're extremely fast hard drive, and if you've seen some of the Ratchet and Clank video where they're just popping from one like completely different level to another completely different level, super fast, no load times. Well, yeah, you can't do that on the old hardware. I get that. And I get the philosophy of like, hey, if you want to play with these advanced features, you're going to have to do it on a PS5. I kind of get that too. So I'm not saying one philosophy is better than the other. And it really just comes down to, again, pick the platform that has the games that you want to play on it and has, don't worry about the philosophy so much and go from there.
Or you can play on a platform that can play all the old games. We had mentioned before that there was a company called Analogue that's selling basically it looks like a Game Boy Pocket, and I said it kind of looks like a
old games.
Yeah, like old games, but it plays like your Game Boy Advance games, it plays your Pocket games, Neo Geo, all these different games that you can play inside this little handheld device. And we mentioned before they're talking about pre-releasing it and such. Well, there has been an update, so they actually sold out within 15 minutes of putting the pre-orders out online. And I mean, hey, that's not like usually a problem. Most people would think that's awesome, right? The problem that a lot of people were seeing is what they did was they put out a tweet and said, Pocket pre-orders are sold out. We'll be producing more to meet demands unfortunate during this global state of affairs. And you can sign up to get like a notification. But what the problem was, a lot of users were seeing that they basically had the item in their cart, and it took almost 7 minutes for the next the cart to load the next page, so you could actually move forward with it. And by the time that they got to the cart to actually purchase the item, they were already sold out. It updated and said, "Oh, it was sold out." So, yeah. And this is something
Servers
with Shopify, I believe, is the company they're using to do the outsourcing as far as the buying and selling. But they didn't really mention that at all, and they haven't talked about it, and they haven't said how many were sold. They didn't really say how many they had to start with. So a lot of people are kind of upset because, I mean, hey, they wanted to pre-order something. They actually had it in the cart. It's almost like waiting for, a server to go online. You're waiting to try to get into the queue, and then you find out that oh, you can't. So that's
I mean, it's not too different from concert tickets. I mean, that's very much the same thing there.
Exactly.
Speaking of updates, just a quick update. I just wanted, of course, to say that I was remiss that I did not say that PlayStation 4 controllers on the PS5 article was also from our roaming reporter, Tickle.
Oh, right. So, I don't know. We'll have to see what other kind of things we get from that person. But it's great so far. Good stuff. Appreciate it. So we're going to go into our emails. Unfortunately, again, there are no emails in our inbox other than the ones that we don't really care about. So I'd like you to send them over if you guys have anything, feedback, comments, even maybe articles that we haven't seen yet. Maybe you can send those over to us as well. As we said, we had some from this guy Tickle, and who knows what we'll get in the future. But if you want to email us, that's GOA@SASgaming. So that's GOA@SASSgaming.com. We get a chance to read your email out loud, talk about it, and obviously we won't read your email out loud, but or your email address out loud, but we can definitely read your handle or whatever you want to put on there. But we definitely appreciate that. Another thing I wanted to mention is our website is online, SASSgaming.com, and right now it's in very limited state. Basically, just as a redirect to have all of our links, so you can go to that website and see every single link that we have for SAS Gaming as the whole, and then also our individual pages of streaming and different social media aspects as well. So with that,
also, that's also where you can find the link to the new SAS Gaming YouTube channel, which is where you will find all of the Got Our Attention videos from the beginning one. Of course, missing 4 right now because the video didn't make it on that one. We might still do something special for that. We'll see. But if you want to catch up with the videos of this podcast, that's where you'll be able to find it as well.
And if you're listening to the podcast, obviously you're probably on a podcast site doing that whole thing. But we do this. I said do. We do stream this live on Twitch, 9 p.m. typically on Thursday nights, unless something comes up. But if you like what you heard, obviously do some subscriptions on YouTube. I mean, everything helps us out. Twitch, YouTube, Twitter. Like I said, we just mentioned all those pages, so we'd really appreciate that. And then always email us something if you have something. Even if you just want to say hi, that's totally fine. So until next week, we love you guys. Y'all stay safe, be careful out there, and have a great week.
Yep. See you
Take
next
care.
time.